Hello everyone, Mannix here. Going to be doing a knife review on the Cold Steel Spartan, one of my all-time favorite blades from one of my all-time favorite knife companies. It's a double whammy review right there. Beautiful knife, very cool, very brutish looking, very menacing, very functional, very strong, very iconic. You look at this and you immediately just think Cold Steel. That is definitely Cold Steel. It's an extremely extreme design, as you can see right here. Let's start with the specs. This is the newer version, by the way, by which I mean when Cold Steel revamped their blade steels. I think that was about 5 years ago they started doing this. Back in the day, this used to be an AUS 8 or AUS, AUS 8A, I believe was what they used, but now they upgraded to an AUS 10A. Anyway, the specs, it retails at $129.99, I believe, but you can get these for around 80 bucks. So not terribly expensive, although it's not very cheap either. That's pretty much a day's worth of work for some people, but not too bad. It has the blade length of 4.5 inches, the handle length of 6 inches, making the overall length 10.5 inches. That's according to their specs anyway. Their website says it weighs 9 ounces. My scale also kind of agrees with that. I would use my scale right now, but I don't know where it is. I don't think it really matters though. Anyway, it's just an absolutely beautiful knife. We have what they call Grivex handles, or Grivery, which is basically just an FRN. We have some stainless steel liners in there, flush mounted. They are not skeletonized. It has the Triad locking mechanism. There's a thumb plate right here, which you can wave off of the pocket. I'll talk about that more in a bit if you're not familiar with what that is. It is tip-up carry only, but it comes with a second pocket clip, which you can screw into the left side of the handle if you wish. You can see that the handle is textured here, and then you can see some cutouts right here too, which are beveled, which is kind of cool. It's a nice little touch. We have some jimping on the spine right here, as you can kind of see there, but it doesn't really work. It's kind of weird. It's in a pattern. Doesn't work that well. Almost doesn't work at all, but it's kind of cool that it's there, whatever. Cold Steel's not known for their jimping on their blades. I don't know why they choose not to jimp them. I don't really care, though. It really doesn't matter to me at all. So this knife is great. It's beautiful. I think it's awesome. It's really strong. It has a couple of downsides, and I'll get to the downsides right now, actually. So the main one I have... So a lot of the Cold Steel knives are meant for being big, heavy, defense, powerful, tough knives. And when it comes to defense, the first thing I think of is I got to get it out of my pocket quick and get it into my hand securely before they destroy me. And this knife is not very good at that because the pocket clip, it rides up so high. Some people consider that an upside. If the pocket clip is higher, it's more covert, it's harder to see the knife, less is sticking out. That is understood. But if you have such a big, heavy knife like this, and all you can grab is this, instead of somewhere like down here, if you grab this and you wave it off of your pocket, you're going to be in this position. And you got to quickly scooch up and get into the grip. Now, once you're in this grip, it's not going anywhere. As you can see, it is locked into your hand. You have this guard right here, guard right there. There's just a lot to grip onto. I like how thin this handle is because it allows for you to reach around the entire handle. Tons of grip. They have a big old menacing blade. You can completely fillet someone open with this bad boy right here. But getting into that grip is the hard part. I like how it waves off the pocket. That just snags on your pocket while... Let me do it right now. I'm wearing sweatpants to see if it works. Yep. Worked like a charm. That wasn't on camera, so I could have completely lied to you about that, but I promise you that's what happened, and I am in this position. So if you're in this position, they can quickly knock it out of your hand, but you gotta just scooch up there really fast. So maybe if you wave it off and you put it behind your leg, maybe you can get into grip there and then thrust forward or something like that. Not that I like to talk about defense too much, but this is just hypothetical. I carry a gun for defense, not a knife, but I do carry a knife on me as a backup for defense, but a knife is a tool to me. But let's talk about it anyway because it's cool to talk about. So that's the main thing. The biggest problem I have with this knife is that although it is fast deployment, it's hard to get into your hand after you deploy it just because that pocket clip is so high up here. But if they made the pocket clip down here, so much would be sticking out, and I don't know, maybe I wish the pocket clip was bigger. You know, there's just more to hold on to, but Cold Steel has this notorious stubby pocket clip on most of their knives. This one's a slightly different design, by the way. It's curvy. I don't like it as much as their normal one. The normal one that shoots up, it shoots straight out that way and then pinches back down. This kind of gradually turns into a pinch rather than plateauing and then pinching down. I don't like that because as you're holding on to the pocket clip and trying to get it out, sometimes if you pinch the pocket clip, you're also pinching it closer to your pants and then you're tightening it, and it can sometimes make it even harder to get it out. Not that it's that big of a deal. That's just kind of a nitpick. But I think it is worth mentioning. But anyway, if you practice with this knife, it's not that slow. It is a lockback, so you do got to give it a thwack. Otherwise, you're gonna, it doesn't really deploy very quickly. You gotta have some wrist movement, but even you just need a slight, not even that much, because the blade's so big and heavy. A slight bit of wrist movement will get it open, so that's not really of a concern either. Bank vault lockup, by the way, it is the Triad Lock. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically a lockback with an additional stop pin right here. And essentially what that does is that stop pin absorbs all the positive force, that's force going on the edge, and then the lock bar itself stops the negative force, which is force on the spine, but then it gets transferred back into that tempered big ol' stop pin right there, which aids the lock bar. So it's essentially, it's one of the strongest locking mechanisms in the world for folding knives. It's up there, I would say, top 4. The others being the Balisong, the Paratrooper style knife, and the Cold Steel Bushman, which I think they call the Ram Safe Lock. That one's super tough too. But this is self-actuating. So as far as a single-handle self-actuating locking mechanism goes, I would argue this is the strongest locking mechanism in the world, period. What I mean by self-actuating is you open up just like any other conventional folder and it locks for you. Unlike a Balisong, you have to manually flip it into place and lock it. Paratrooper, you gotta use 2 hands, and that's 2 handles, by the way, it's not single handle. The Ram Safe Lock, actually that's self-actuating, but you have to completely pull it back really far to disengage it. I don't even know if they make those Cold Steel Bushmans anymore, but that was a really strong locking mechanism. Regardless, that's me trailing off. It's a really strong locking mechanism. It's not going to disengage on you. Even if this is in your handle, you can see the fattiness near my thumb right here is near here. There's no, I'm squeezing really hard on this side. There is no way it's gonna disengage. It's a perfect shape. We have cutouts right here. They're not rounded though. I kind of like it when Cold Steel rounds out the cutouts. Total nitpick, not a big deal, but they're cut at like a 90-degree angle, as you can see there. So it's slightly sharp. So if you're a wimp, it's gonna hurt your thumb a little bit. Yeah, sorry about that. But no, big old heavy knife. What did I say? Yeah, about 9 ounces. A lot of people don't like the heavier knives, but this knife is meant to be a big, heavy, strong knife. When you have more weight and you're bashing through stuff and you're chopping stuff, sometimes you want a little bit of extra weight. So I'll forgive them for that. Me personally, I do not give a crap about weight on knives. I've carried knives that were 14 ounces, 15 ounces, 16 ounces, and it didn't bother me. Maybe that's just me. But some people, they're like, if it's over 3.5 ounces, I'm definitely not carrying that knife ever. This is not the knife for you to carry. I'll just leave it at that. I don't mind how it's heavy. They could have made it slightly lighter if they skeletonized those liners, maybe saved an ounce. Skeletonizing liners does not save you very much weight, just FYI. It's very minor. But regardless, here we are. So the thumb plates, some people like them, most people don't. Most people prefer the thumb studs, even more people generally prefer the thumb holes. I don't mind the thumb plate, actually. I really don't care. You can even take it out if you want. Why would you do that? I don't know, but you could. There's a screw right there. It's heavily jimped on both sides, so it is ambidextrous. I don't mind it. I really like the thumb plate, actually. Big deal. I like how you can wave it off of your pocket with it, too. Now, with the whole theme of Sparta, one of the many things I like about what Cold Steel does with their knives is that they'll take inspiration from other things. This one happens to be, I believe, the Copus sword, which were used in the movie when that came out around the same time. That was 300. The handle's designed after the handle those swords use, and the blade's somewhat similar too, although it's more like a kukri, as you can see here, with AUS 10A, stonewash finish, flat grind, not full flat grind though, but it's absolutely beautiful. I love how they upgraded from the bead blasted finish to the stonewash finish. I love stonewash. Not only is it beautiful, I think, but it's also one of the smoothest finishes around too, so it'll rust a lot less readily than any of its predecessors, like a satin finish or bead blast finish, etc. So both beauty and function-wise, stonewash is great. I love stonewash. So thank you, Cold Steel, for changing the blade to a stonewash finish. Now about the texturing right here, it's not going to slip out of your hands very easy. It's not really grippy, it's just slightly grippy. These cutouts are really just for design. They kind of remind me of like lion stripes or something. Very caveman-looking blade. It's pretty sweet. Got a backspacer right here, probably made of FRN as well. Doesn't really matter. You got a lanyard hole here if you want to use that. I don't like lanyards on folders. If you ask me why, I don't like how as I'm swinging it, sometimes it dangles up, and when I try to close it, sometimes it gets in the way and it closes on it. I don't care for lanyards on folders, but you could put a big old, like, chunky ball lanyard that doesn't dangle very much on here, and then maybe that could help you open it up if you seriously wanted this to be a good defense knife. Once it's in your hand, this thing is going to kill someone. This thing is super tough. The looks of it alone are very menacing. It's a huge, cumbersome knife. So it's very scary and very sweet in that regard. So once it's in your hand, it's like this. Yeah, you're not going to go down very easily. But getting it into your hand after opening the knife up, that's another story. So maybe that's something to consider. So you can also choke up on it just like that, put your index finger right there so you get a little bit more control. If you're whittling or shaving something, doing some more precision work, you can scooch down here, I guess, if you want a little bit more reach. I don't advise it, though, because of this loop right here. This is what I consider an extreme design folder. There's not many different ways to hold it. It's not very versatile, but the 1 or 2 ways you can hold it in, it's extremely comfortable and very good and very secure at, as you can see here. Some people are like, well, I want to hold it like this if I'm doing that, and then it's kind of uncomfortable if it's the handle's riding up on your hand like that. This is what I consider an extreme folder. A versatile folder would be a handle. This is basically like a rectangle. You can hold it in pretty much any position. It's not going to be uncomfortable. However, it's not going to be terribly comfortable in any position in particular either. This is what I consider an extreme design versus a versatile design. This is not versatile whatsoever. It's very, very extreme. So some people are going to take one look at this knife and be like, ew, not for me, and not buy it. That's understandable because it's very specific. It's very extreme. I happen to love it. It's one of my favorite knives ever. This is really cool. Now, other than defense, other than heavy tasks and tough work and big old tough guy stuff, this is not the best knife for EDC. It's actually terrible. It's a terrible EDC knife because it's so big and it's so heavy and it's just so cumbersome. You just want to open up a package or something. People look at that and they'll give you this look. It's just so extreme. This is a blade designed for chopping and slashing, not opening stuff up with this little movement. Although it is pretty good for that because of that recurve right there. But typical, it's just so huge and ridiculous. You're going to get a lot of weird looks, even just opening the knife up. But I think it's beautiful. I carry it for EDC anyway. It's just not very good for EDC compared to most other knives out there. And it's not terribly expensive either. It's not terribly cheap. I liked it when Cold Steel's knives, when this was closer to like the $50 range. Now it's closer to the $80 range. But they have upgraded their blade steel, and that has a lot to do with that. In fact, I think that's 100% of it is that their blade steel quality went up because a lot of people were complaining that they only used AUS 8 on all their knives all those years, about a little over half a decade ago. So they upgraded. I didn't care about the AUS 8. I didn't mind it, but the AUS 10 is an upgrade. It's closer to the VG10 spectrum of things. It's closer to that blade steel quality and longevity, rust resistance, and all that good stuff. It's close to VG10 from my research, but it's a highly debated thing. A lot of people say no, AUS 10 is way worse than VG10. I've seen people say actually AUS 10 is way better than your crappy VG10. It's all over the place. It really comes down to personal preference and your own uses. The best way to gain knowledge is from experience, I believe. So I think it's a great blade still. I have not had any issues with it. I haven't used it too much, but it hasn't really dulled on me. It's razor sharp, just like all Cold Steel knives are out of the box. Not much else to say about it. Beautiful knife, very extreme design. You're either going to love this thing or you are going to hate it. I absolutely love this thing. Love the Cold Steel Spartan, one of my favorite classic Cold Steel knives. There you have it.